So the big question is this: how do real estate investors who don't have a ton of free time, don't have access to off-market deals, and didn't start life on third base, how do we conservatively grow our real estate business to support our families, finally leave the corporate rat race, and build a legacy? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. I'm Ed Matthews, and this is Real Estate Underground. Greetings and salutations, Real Estate Undergrounders. This is Ed Matthews with the Real Estate Underground podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, I'm really excited because I'm actually taking a ride on the Wayback Machine. We're going to be talking a little bit about flipping and a whole bunch of other things. But I've been stalking this gentleman on LinkedIn for, it's been quite a few months now. And fortunately, Mr. Billy Daniel from Russellville, Arkansas, and the co-owner of NextHome Premier Realty was kind enough to respond to our pleas for joining the show. And here he is today. Billy, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to see you, my friend, and I'm excited about this conversation.
Yeah, Ed, thanks for having us. It's great. Like you said, I was more than happy to join and jump on here and talk about some real estate.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, it was interesting because we reached out and you immediately responded. I was like, wow, that's most of the time we have to harass you for at least a month before you say yes. So
it's perfect timing.
Yeah, you're a kind man. So Billy, obviously I've been tracking you on LinkedIn, and so I know a little bit about you, but for the audience out there, you want to talk about who you are and the companies you run, and then we can dive into the conversation.
Sure. So I've started investing in real estate back in 2018. Started with just a single family home. That was actually a $15,000 house.
Wow.
It was 1,500 square feet, and it looked exactly like you would imagine a house to look that cost $10 a square foot. So we dove right in with that one, and we got to the end of that, and I decided I was never doing that again. Never investing in real estate. I'm done with it. It's overrated. So fast forward now, we have several more properties.
Right.
We have several businesses. We have our holding company for our rental properties. Like you mentioned, NextHome Premier Realty is a brokerage. Me and my wife opened January last year here in Russellville.
Congrats.
I have a separate part. Thank you so much. It's a lot of fun. I have a separate partnership that also owns some small multifamily. And I just recently started up a local RIA here in Russellville.
Excellent.
So it's been quite the ride from squaring it off to now I'm fully in it.
Yeah. And it's a great way for experienced investors to connect and share war stories and maybe even do business together at some point. But the thing that I love about the local RIA and other meetup groups like it is it's also an excellent place for people who think they want to get into this business to be able to go and network and get to know the local investor community and hear people speak about best practices and how to run a business, whether it's a full-time business like you and me, or it's a side hustle because you got a 9-to-5 as well. But it's an outstanding. Yeah. So kudos to you for starting it. Because I know, having been one of the partners here in the CT RIA up until about October, it's a lot of work. And so congrats. And obviously you do not require sleep given how much you have going on. So offline, I'll ask you what your secret is.
I can tell you my secret. I was in the military for 8 years. So you're trained not to sleep. So
that's right. Yeah, exactly.
As a one-off yet.
You sleep. And first off, thank you for your service. You were in the Navy, right?
I was in the Navy. That's right. For 8 long years, I'll say.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And so I come from a military family, and I did not have the honor to serve, but all my nephews and grandfather and everyone else they can sleep in 20-minute increments and be fine. And I never understood that.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Something weird with it.
Yeah, it's okay. You just wired different. That's all. It's all good. And you got good training. So there was that too.
Right.
So in terms of your business, right? I heard rental properties. I'm pretty sure you're in the flipping business as well, which as a former, I don't want to say recovering because I miss it so much, flipper, I'm interested in how you're running your business and keeping all of that straight. And what systems do you use to make it all run?
Yeah, no, that very first property, it was obviously that was going to be all the way down to the studs and bring it all the way back to live.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot in that period. Learned some things I did the right way, some things I did the wrong way. When I first started, I was said, you've got a 10-day inspection window here in Arkansas when you put a property under contract. And I said, I'm going to get all these contractors out in this window and I'm going to get all my quotes done. And that was a disaster. You call 25 contractors, 10 show up and 5 will give you a quote if you're lucky. Right. So it was a huge waste of my time. But in that same process, I weeded out a bunch of them. So I had to go through that hard lesson to figure out, okay, these are the guys that I can call for my next one. And then some of the guys that I did end up hiring for that job, I ended up having to fire because they just didn't prioritize my work. I had this house sitting that was needing specifically plumbing, and my plumber was just never showing up. So I had to fire a guy, and that was a unpleasant experience, even though he's his own business and everything. It's just never easy, but that was another lesson to learn, is to stay on top of your contractors, because I let him drag it out for about a month longer than he should have.
Yep.
It's just a huge learning curve there, that very first one. Since we've had that one, we've had several more that we've taken down to the studs, and they've all gone much smoother than that first one.
Excellent. Just
The contractor management, knowing who I can call, and then doing the surprise pop buys. I think those are hugely important.
Absolutely.
Notice it's Wednesday at 10. I'm just going to stop in and see how things are going. And they always want to be able to say, look what we've done since the last time you were here. So they want to be able to show their progress. So I think that's a huge, valuable lesson that flippers should take and implement into their own business.
Yeah. I'm notorious for showing up at 9 a.m. or 7:30 a.m. on Monday mornings, and just so that I'm there first. And as guys trickle in, I make sure I was like, hey guys, good morning. I brought you coffee, and I don't say anything. If they're walking in at 7:45, 8 o'clock, 8:30, no problem. If they're tooling in at 9:45, we have a talk. And, and again, like you were saying, having that process to stop off at a project at any given time, just to check in, is really important to make sure that they're hustling and that you're on track and on budget.
That's right. And that's the other thing with that plumber I told you about that I had to fire. It was just those surprise pop-ins that I had just read about in some other books. And my surprise pop-ins, I was the only one at the house in the middle of the day. That's when I call him. He's at lunch. Okay. You were at lunch yesterday when I called you for 3 hours. And so it's a great tool to make sure that not only your contractor's on track, but then your whole project stays on track.
Right.
Because one guy messing up or taking 2 weeks too long, now he pushes out the drywallers or whatever.
Yeah,
and now the painter has to
effect, right? Exactly.
Yeah,
you push.
Yeah, so you got to stay on top of them.
You can't close the walls. You can't paint them. You can't install trim. You can't do the floors. And it creates lots and lots of delays that are unnecessary. So you're right on that. Mm-hmm. So in terms of properties, when you talk about your rental properties, are you strictly in the single family home business, or do you have multis as well?
Mostly single families. I do have a couple of small multifamily. Those are the ones that we've bought that needed maybe just a little bit of cosmetic work. I haven't paid market value for anything that we've bought.
My man.
I'm always looking for the stuff that needs to be fixed.
Value add,
that's
right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Finding those is what I'm really looking for. With the small multi-families, those are the ones I have in a separate partnership. I want those a little closer to being ready, but I still want to go in and get some value added. That's mostly paint, maybe some trim work and that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. So when you're looking at your single family deals, right? How are you evaluating, okay, this one's a flip, this one's a keeper? Like, what is the thought process in terms of how you're deciding what your exit's going to be?
So what I look for first is, what's the rental market? I prefer rental properties. I'm in this more for the long term. Right. So the first thing I'll look for is, what's the rent going for in that area around that. I've actually got one under contract right now in a little town nearby. Got one going under contract in a little town nearby right now that there's nothing for rent. And it's a town of about 4,000 or 5,000 people, but there's nothing that I can find online that's for rent, even on Facebook Marketplace. So I feel like that's going to be a really good property. And now it's a lot of fire damage. We got to get it fixed up, but there's nothing for rent. So we're going to be able to get a little bit more of a premium, and we're not going to sit vacant for very long in that market. So that'd be the first thing I look for, is what's the rental demand like? Yeah. Then afterwards, I'll move on to the after repair value of the property. Are we going to be able to buy it, make the proper repairs, and then still have enough equity in it to do a refinance? Or if we want to flip it, can we flip it? Those are really the two big things that I look at.
Okay. Yeah, it makes total sense, right? Because obviously the thing I loved about flipping houses is it's relatively quick cash, right? And within the 6 months, you're getting a chunk of cash in that you can then put back on the street and continue to grow. But the reason that we moved away from that and focused on multi was exactly what you were just talking about in terms of the long view. It's truly a way to build wealth, because not only are you seeing cash flow day to day, right? Your tenant is also paying down your mortgage, which is creating equity. And hopefully in the right markets, over the course of a long period of time, say 10 plus years, your property is also becoming a lot more valuable. And so you're growing equity that way too. And that, from a wealth perspective, that's how you get to a point where generational wealth becomes part of the conversation and the plan.
That's right. Now, and that very first property we're talking about, I paid 15 for it. I think we were all in for 65, 70 total by the time we put tenants in it. And I think we valued that. We just did a little bit of renovations on it. We valued it about 130 now. So it's been a pretty great,
that is a
return on that one.
Run. So you basically doubled your money in what time frame?
It's been about 5 years, but we just did a lot of work to it and got a lot more value out of it, appreciation wise, but the cash flow on it has been great that whole time. And it's going to get even better now.
That's phenomenal. Congratulations. Now you rinse and repeat, and soon you've got 5, 10, 15, 20 of these over the course of, 10 plus years. And then it gets really interesting.
That's right. And fun. It's more fun. I don't know. I know very few people, I should say, that only have one rental property. Or once you get that first one, they know that first rent that comes in and the bug bites and you're on to the next one.
Absolutely. And at that point, it's an inflection point though, right? You either love it or you go, man, I'm just not the right personality type for this. I'm going to get out. Yeah. I've never, it's interesting you say that, because I too have never met someone who has one rental property. It's either it's not for me or more. I love this.
Yeah, exactly. We are definitely in the more category.
Yes. Likewise. So in terms of looking at, obviously you've built several successful businesses. And I would imagine if you got into running dry cleaners or ice cream shops or cleaning businesses or anything else, you'd probably be successful as well. But real estate is an interesting business. And so I'm curious, what drew you to real estate as opposed to any of the other things that you and your partners and wife could have done?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
A motivated seller just filled out your web form. If you call back within 5 minutes, you're nearly 4 times more likely to get that seller appointment. But delay your follow-up by even just 10 minutes? Forget it. You're toast. Ella Vista Connect calls that lead back in 60 seconds, qualifies them, and schedules your meeting. Find out how much slow follow-up is costing you. Free calculator at ellavista.com/underground.
So I think looking back at whenever we first got into it, real estate has always interested me, particularly the rental real estate. I've always been fascinated by the idea that you could own this house and then somebody else would pay all your bills for you, but you also get some money put in your pocket. You don't really have to do anything. It's passive. No, it's passive, but in quotes where it belongs, but no, much easier cash than getting a job. I've always been fascinated by it. That's correct.
Right.
I've always liked that aspect of it. And then I also am a huge fan of the amount of control you get over kind of your own destiny.
Right.
Working a W-2 at a corporate job, that's great. It's probably very stable. You can advance through the ranks and there's a future there. But at the end of the day, if they don't meet their quarterly returns they told their investors, your job could be on the line.
Right.
Yeah. So I didn't like that idea that some executive 4 states over could really have a lot of control over mine and my family's fate. Right. For something that really had nothing to do with me.
I couldn't agree more. We grew up, at least I grew up in a family that it was the classic American dream, right? You work hard, you get good grades in school, you go to college, or you you find a vocation, and you work very hard for 40 years and for somebody else. And then you retire, they give you a gold watch and you go hit golf balls until the great beyond. And
that's right.
I always looked at that as the risk. Right? Because the fact is that, like you were saying, some person 4 states away who has no idea what my name is. I'm just a number on an employee HR report. But I might be either not enough tenure, or I might make a little too much, or something else, or they don't like the fact that I have green eyes. They prefer guys with blue eyes. Who knows? But
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. And you can walk in the door on a Friday morning and by lunchtime, you don't have a job. And as an entrepreneur, I see it as a lot more control, right? And there's levels of that control as well, because there's a freedom aspect to it too, right? in that like yesterday, for instance, my daughter plays softball and she was in a state tournament that's that time of year, and 3:30 rolled around. I let my team know, like, I'm out of here. I'm going to go watch Mag play softball. And did I come back to the office after? Yeah, for a little while, but the fact is that I've got that freedom. But the other part of it is I didn't have to ask a boss for permission. I don't have to worry about that boss having a problem with me doing that, because if the recession hits and that boss does have a problem with me doing it and he decides he wants to lay me off for whatever reason, none of that is in my world anymore. And likewise with you. And it is certainly a liberating feeling.
That's right. And it honestly took me a while to adjust. I had a full-time W-2 job until about last April.
Yeah.
Until about last April.
Yeah.
And I quit that job and went full-time into our brokerage. And it took me a few months to get used to the freedom.
Right.
I was still waking up early and going to our office by myself because I just couldn't adjust.
You're just wired, right? Yeah.
That's right. But now I can't. We have our office because the state requires us to have brick and mortar, but all of our stuff is virtual. But I go in there once a week just to make sure that it hadn't burned down. That's probably about it.
Lights still work, plumbing still work.
That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah. But it's the freedom of choice, what you get to do with your day, how you get to spend your time is great, as long as you don't get too carried away with your freedom, because you still have to hold yourself accountable in your income producing activities. Because there's no boss to tell you can't take off for a softball game. There's also no boss to tell you, hey, you need to get this done before Friday. Right. So there's that personal accountability that's there
is. And so one of the ways that I do that is I have a board of directors and I have dinner with them every night, my wife and my 2 daughters. And if knowing that payday is coming, and amazing as it sounds, these children, they require food. I don't get it, but so we have to feed them. We have to clothe them, and we have to pay the mortgage and all that. And if I go to too many softball games, that's going to be hard. Right. But so we keep them to a bare minimum. But the fact is that you're right. And that's part of it, is being a self-starter and holding yourself accountable. It's probably the hardest thing to do. Right.
It is. And it can be real tempting. Even just today, I woke up and had a lot to do this morning before we sat down and talked. And there's this part of me that's, God, I could probably just sit on the couch for a little while after this. But the reality is I've got things I got to go and get taken care of. There's always that little battle. It gets easier as time goes on, but
yes,
it's always there.
I find that if I can get over that hump, so I'd rationalize that too. This morning I had a breakfast meeting with an investor, and it was at 9:40 actually. And I'm up early. I think I was up at 5:45 this morning. And so I'm like, I could just sleep off this morning and I don't have to be downtown until 9:30, right? I can go in late. And then I was like, oh, no, can't do that. Got to go to the office and get some stuff done beforehand. Yeah, no, it's certainly an exercise in self-discipline for sure.
It is. And like I said, it has gotten a lot easier over the last year for me. Just wake up and I start getting my own routine.
Right.
On it. And
it's all about rituals, right?
I could never go back to the office. I don't think I can handle it.
I told a former boss of mine not that long ago, I told him, I was like, he called me and he's, any chance you might want to do some consulting work or maybe even think about joining the team? And I'm like, no. And I was like, no, not because I don't love you, because I do, but you don't want me. I am unemployable at this point, right? Because I'm so set in my entrepreneurial ways that if I have to be put into an ecosystem or a new culture, pretty good chance knowing my personality type, I'm not going to be very happy about that, which makes it tough.
I'm in the same boat. I would not be a good employee anymore.
Yeah. If I had to, I would, but I don't have to, so I'm not going to.
That's right. I'm with you.
Right. You run multiple businesses, which I always admire in entrepreneurs. I have a profound case of entrepreneurial ADD, the shiny object syndrome. I've got ideas for agencies and real estate investment companies and funds and service businesses. And I'm always thinking about stuff. The hardest part for me is to focus, right? And one of the ways that we do that here is we've got process and procedures and enabling technology business systems that kind of manage our process so that it causes me pause when I go, hey, I got a great idea. It causes me pause because then it's okay, who's going to run it and how are we going to, deploy these systems? Because I require sleep, right? I need 6 to 8 hours a night. So that means I can't work 24 hours a day, if only. And in terms of your systems and how you manage things, you mentioned that you're a virtual organization by and large, which I think a lot of companies like ours look like that. But I'm curious, how do you view business systems and processes, and how do you educate your team and folks that you bring on so that they run it your way?
Yeah, when I had a W-2, I was part of the nuclear power industry, and everything in nuclear power is regimented as a checklist for everything.
Thank God.
Yeah. You don't want those guys winging it.
No.
But so I've carried some of that forward. We have my primary focus among our businesses is our brokerage. That's really where we pay our bills. That's our most public facing business. It's our only really regulated business.
Right.
So that's where both of my attention goes. So my mornings, every morning are spent working on that business, whether it's going through the books and my accounting practices or checking other agents' paperwork and making sure that they're caught up where they need to be. But that's where I spend most of my time, is focusing on that brokerage. The investment property business really isn't that time consuming anymore. We have property managers that we use. So our rents come in on the 10th. So usually on the 10th, you can find me going through and updating all my Google Drive sheets that I share with our partners, and just updating all the finances. And that'll take me a solid part of the day. But once those rent checks hit our bank account, I go through and do all my accounting for the month. And that's usually about it. Yeah. Every now and then I'll get a text message for a needed repair or something, and that's just 5 minutes or whatever.
Sure.
But the rental properties themselves are really pretty much on autopilot with a property manager. Now, some people will manage their own, and obviously that's a whole different ball game. And
right.
I do manage one of our properties because that's part of the partnership deal, but I hate it. I don't really like dealing with tenants very much, but I'm going to figure it out and get better at it. So the rental properties, as far as business systems, is really just a spreadsheet where I track all of our finances on each property, and then they all tie into an overall spreadsheet. For the roundtable RIA, I found a program called Wave, which is like QuickBooks, a free version of QuickBooks. So I'm getting into that because I use QuickBooks for the brokerage, which is extremely user-friendly. People out there looking for accounting software, like I recommend QuickBooks. I find it very easy to use.
Same.
Mileage tracking and all that stuff.
Same.
But Wave is like a free version of QuickBooks. Very similar setup. So I'm using that for the RIA. But so using those kind of systems that are already prepackaged and ready to go, like off the shelf type stuff. And then it's just a little bit of a learning curve for me to get efficient at it. And then it's just real simple after a while, after you go over that learning curve.
Yeah. Once you get it in place, then it's just a matter of rinse and repeat, right? And so we operate very similarly. The only thing I would add to what you're talking about, and I'm sure you do this too, at least it's in some way, is there is a process or a checklist for pretty much everything we do here. And so we're a big user of or hire virtual assistants in the Philippines. And so when we're setting up a role, I will step through on a video, a Zoom call or whatever, and we'll record it. Of here's the process that I want you to follow. And at least in the early stages, if you find a better way of doing it, cool. And let's document it so that we all know how to do it. If you decide you want to go on vacation for a few days, somebody else can step in. But other than that, it's the same thing, right? It's just creating that predictable set of systems so that at some point, Billy, I'm sure you and your wife would like to go on vacation, right? And it allows you to do that.
For our agents, we'll have checklists for them, their paperwork and their transactions. Here's how you get all the way through a transaction. But another thing that my wife has really taken on, as she's the principal broker for the company, is she'll log into our Google account that we share with everybody, and she'll record videos walking through, this is a contract, and she'll share the screen and she'll say, here's what you put in these blanks. Here's what you need to ask your clients. And it's a video they can always go back and reference. And I don't know how many she has, probably 20. But it's an awesome resource. It's just there for them to use whenever they need it.
And it probably makes your life and your wife's life easier as well, because over the course of time, you're going to get fewer questions because the questions are answered in the video that they all have access to, right? Mm-hmm. How do you do
right.
this?
That's
okay,
the
that's
goal.
This video here. Why don't you go take a look at it? You get questions, come on back.
That's right. That's exactly how we handle it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I have this theory that I think I've since proved, but I'm still going to ask the questions. Readers are leaders, or leaders are readers, excuse me. But these days, that's different than it was even 10 years ago 15 years ago in that we're not necessarily talking about physical books. I can be talking about YouTube videos and podcasts and audible books or any number of conferences, webinars, whatever. So I'm curious in terms of how you sharpen the saw, so to speak, and improve and continue to grow. How do you consume information? And I'm also curious about who you're paying attention to these days in terms of authors or creators.
Sure. As far as books, I'm a combination. So I do read some like paper books. I'll go through a few of those a year. But then in my car, it's always podcast or an audiobook. It's on most of the time. For instance, right now I'm reading Atomic Habits.
Oh yeah, James
I'm
Clear.
sure that
Right.
mentioned. That's right. Probably about one out of every 20. That's right. It's Atomic Habits. I'm getting through that. I really enjoy it. Podcast, the most consistent podcast I listen to is On the Market from Bigger Pockets.
Okay.
You can tell I do the accounting and stuff like that. I'm a little bit of a nerd when it comes to the real estate. I like to read the data and hear the numbers.
Yep.
And that podcast focuses on that. So that's the only podcast I really consistently listen to.
Okay.
And as far as audiobooks, recently I've been trying to get into some of the business systems. So I just finished Traction a couple of weeks ago about the EOS system and looking at laying some of the groundwork so that as we continue to grow, we can implement some of those plans. I really like that idea. But those are where I'm focusing right now. Beforehand, it was earlier in my investing career, I started with Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That's what kicked this whole thing off. I think 90% of real estate investors probably say the same thing.
You and me both. Yep.
Yeah. And, but if you're, it's an investing Bible. Is that what you said?
Purple Bible.
Oh, a purple Bible. I like that. Can I steal that?
Sure. I stole it from somebody else. So yeah, dude, feel free.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
That started off, and then I read some of the other Bigger Pockets books from Brandon Turner and David Green, and just really got into the meat of what to know, but also what to ask, because you don't know what you don't know. Right. So getting into those things, those forums all really helped me with my development.
Absolutely. Yeah. I found Bigger Pockets to be extremely useful because I've learned how to run a remote business doing that, right? Reading David Green's books. I learned how to manage my own properties, reading Brandon Turner's book, which it was the one that managing rental properties by Brandon and his wife, Heather, is one of the best property management books I've read. It's outstanding. And I have no affiliation with him. I'm just giving him respect because it's a really good book. And in fact, we base a lot of how we run our properties here on that book. That and there's a couple of others. Landlording on Autopilot was the other one. I'm trying to remember the gentleman's name. It'll come to me. But it's something that I'm with you. I don't listen to the radio anymore unless it's like playoffs. Now that the Celtics lost, so I'm a Celtics fan. Now that the Celtics lost, I'm back to audiobooks and not listening to NBA radio or ESPN. But at some point, any given point, I'll listen to a podcast or an audiobook myself. So let me ask you something. And here's a loaded question. So if I took a magic wand and took away everything that you have in terms of assets, and you could go back in time, say 10 years from now or 20 years from now or 20 years ago, what would you do differently knowing which now? You can bring back all of your knowledge, all of your expertise. You just can't bring your money and you can't bring your assets. So would you do anything different?
I would search for the RIA. I would look for the network with no money, no assets. Just go find your network. There's your net worth anyway. So I would find the RIA and start talking to people there and building the relationships at the RIA, and then the business just follows it naturally.
Yeah, it's amazing because we were talking about this offline that you run into folks that I affectionately refer to as the dreamers, the ones that would love to get into this business, but don't know where to find the money, don't know where to find deals, don't have the time to do it. And a RIA or a meetup group like that will solve at least two of those problems, right? Because any given time, the CT RIA, when we were in there, I had a conversation with a gentleman who came out to me. He goes, I'd love to do this, but I don't have any money. And I threw an arm around him. I turned him around. There were 150 people in the room plus. And I said, in this room, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 millionaires who invest in other people's properties. Get out there. Mm-hmm. Go talk to them. And he's like, which ones? I'm like, that's not the way it works. I'm not going to invade their privacy. You have to actually go meet them. Right. But the thing is that, and the other thing we were talking about before we hit record is it's a big world out there, and most of the people in this community will help you, right? If you ask a question, they will answer the question for you. They'll help you, right? Because the fact that you bought a multifamily that, and I'm in the multifamily business doesn't take away from me. I'm happy for you when you get a win. Even if you outbid me. If you outbid me, I'm hoping that you've overpaid for it so that I can buy it later. But that's different.
That's right.
Just by a little bit. But the fact is that it's a big pie and everybody can get a slice, and meetups and networking groups like that are a perfect example of folks that, back in the day, somebody helped them, mentored them. And one of the ways that they're returning that or paying it forward is by helping them, the person that comes up to them and says, hey, how do you do this?
Yeah, that's right. And back in 2018, when I got started, there wasn't a RIA around here that I could find. I was all books and forums and trying to absorb it all on my own. I didn't have much of a network, but we dove in anyway. But since I've learned, going back to weeding out my contractors, is I've done that also with home inspectors and loan officers, and we just built that network. And that's why we started this RIA here. I've gone to one that's in Fort Smith. It's a little over an hour away, and met several people, and it's great. And you're right. If you have a problem, they're going to give you an answer.
Sure.
And it's going to be exactly what you need to hear. People are so excited to share their knowledge and to help others out. Like you said, the pie is huge.
Yep.
Plenty out there.
Yep. Absolutely. And I think it's also the juice, right? It gets you helping me or me helping you, and then seeing that other person succeed. I don't know about you, but it fires me up. I'm thrilled when it is. It absolutely is. Billy, I'm curious about your non-real estate time, such as it is, given that you have 47 different real estate companies. But when you're not talking about real estate in some way, shape, or form, how do you like to spend your time?
Oh, to blow off steam, I've played drums since I was in 7th grade. So I have a drum set upstairs, so I can go up there and put on these oversized headphones and just rock out for a while and blow off some steam. Family time is spent for us at the soccer field quite a bit. I have a 9-year-old daughter who actually yesterday just found out she made a local club team.
Congratulations. That's wonderful.
Yeah, she's pretty about that. So we spend quite a bit of time on soccer. Yeah. But it's a lot of fun. Our youngest is 4 and he's getting into soccer too. I don't know if he really knows it yet, but he's going to be a little soccer player as well. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of, let's say, uptime around the Daniel household.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a family member who he and his wife did not have kids. And he was asking me a while ago, he said, what are your hobbies? And I'm like, see those 2 little girls running around? Those are my hobbies, because I don't have time for anything else.
That's right.
It's the thing you ever do. So Billy, I've really enjoyed our conversation today. And again, thank you for your time. If people want to learn more about you or your business, what's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, I mentioned LinkedIn. It's just Billy Daniel at LinkedIn. You can find me on a little profile picture of the blue shirt on. Instagram, I'm another flippin' couple. I've been told we have one of the best profile photos out there. I'll let you go check that out yourself and see what you think. And then our brokerage, NextHome Premier Realty.com. We're in Russellville, Arkansas. We can service the whole state.
Excellent. Billy Daniel, thank you so much for your time. It's good to see you, my friend, and looking forward to catching up again sometime soon.
All right. Thanks, Ed. I really appreciate it. It's been great.
This has been the Real Estate Underground podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. It helps us grow. Until next time, happy investing. This has been the Real Estate Underground. Don't forget to subscribe. It helps us grow. Until next time, Undergrounders, remember your real estate journey begins with a simple step forward. Now get to it. Bye for now.